Bergman, you don't play fantasy, do you?
I hate fantasy.
Yeah,
so
I've never
done
but I follow along with the players, and I follow along with friends that do it.
You're a Raider fan. You should have something that keeps you occupied for like November, December.
Well, I'm going to find out about Zamir White, and we'll talk about that.
Okay. And Brian, you're a big player too, so jump in here at
Love
any
it.
point. So to me, there's like 3 running backs who are over and above.
Yes.
McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson,
Yep.
and Brees Hall.
Yes.
Do you agree with that? Those are 1, 2, 3 in some order. Actually, McCaffrey's probably 1. Right?
McCaffrey's probably 1 right now, although I see people making a case to maybe move Brees Hall up there. But those are your top tier kind of elite running backs, yes.
Okay.
So normally you go running back to start. You're going to go 1, 2, 3 with those guys?
Well, here's the thing. The way fantasy has changed lately, especially with more PPR leagues, your first round is a lot more wide receiver heavy than it was in the past. So your first 3 running backs are those guys. But you can make a case after McCaffrey that you can go, say, a CeeDee Lamb, a Tyreek Hill. Those guys have been creeping into the top 3 in a lot of leagues right now.
So I want to ask you about a 0 running back strategy.
Okay.
That's an actual thing,
Yes.
right? Where
How do
you
you do
sit
that?
back and you go wide receiver, you get your quarterback, and then towards the end of the draft, you start getting running backs. Is that a smart way to approach things?
It is. Now, obviously, some of it depends on how the draft is going. If everybody in your league is drafting running backs really early, you're probably going to have to kind of follow suit because you're going to be left out. But there is a very sound theory in which you wait until maybe the 5th or 6th round before you get your first running back. Now, the guys you're getting, at first glance, they may not blow you away, but they're guys who are going to get a lot of opportunities within their offense. The other part of it means you're going to spend your middle rounds drafting a lot more running backs. So
Right, you got to go volume of running backs with the hope that a couple of those guys go off.
The base theory behind 0 RB is that running backs tend to get hurt at a higher rate than other positions. So you're getting guys that are maybe, that are starters certainly on their own team, but then on the later rounds, you're getting guys who are maybe backup running backs, but have a chance to get a bigger role if their starter gets hurt.
Right.
So yeah, you might wait till the 5th round, but then you may draft 4 or 5 running backs in a row to sort of fill that and give you that cushion in case one of your guys either gets hurt or just isn't good that
Do you
year.
recommend this as a strategy? Do you use 0 running back strategy?
If you've been
do.
playing for a while, I think it's a good theory to have. If you're new to fantasy or you're not really, an advanced player, I probably would not do that.
Okay.
So, like a guy like Bijan Robinson is a guy that catches passes out of the backfield too.
Yes.
So, and same with Devon Achane. Achane.
Yeah.
Like, are those? What are other types of guys like that are going to be catching passes and running the ball?
So, James Cook in Buffalo is a guy like that who's going to catch the football a lot. Travis Etienne in Jacksonville is another guy that sort of offers you that upside. Rashad White did that last year in Tampa. I don't know if they do the same thing with him this year. Last year they did it because they just couldn't run the football. So they're like, you know what? We're just going to make you a pass catcher, just throw you like dump-offs and sort of use that as our running game. I don't know if they do that now with the new offensive coordinator. But Alvin Kamara's been a guy that did that for most of his career. That offense is a little bit sketchy this year, so I don't know.
So, go ahead.
Sorry, do you suggest actually going for those guys when you're drafting, maybe in your 5th or 6th round, going to that type of guy?
Yeah, that's the kind of guy to go after. I mean, if you're waiting till the 5th or 6th round, right? If you're going to go 0 RB, some guys I love. James Conner is a guy that I really love at that spot. DeAndre Swift in Chicago can be another one like that. Ramondre Stevenson in New England. Those are the guys that they're not the frontline guys. And again, I will repeat. If you go 0 RB, there's a very good chance you're going to look at your running backs and you're not going to be super excited about them because they're not going to be big-time names, but they are guys who are going to be consistent producers all year long.
Okay, so the Rams have got Kyron Williams, who had a really good year last year, went for 1,000 yards, missed a couple of games because of injury. And he has now the last couple of years had injuries. They've got Blake Corum that they drafted, I think, in the 3rd round from Michigan.
Yes.
A lot of people, is the right move if you draft Kyron Williams, you must have the handcuff with Blake Corum?
He's not a must-have, but he is a nice option. I think Blake Corum will have some standalone value in fantasy football, which is, I think, a thing you want out of that handcuff player. I just get this sense that Sean McVay, I know they loved Kyron Williams and they gave him a big workload last year. I still think they want to have somebody that they can lean on just to kind of give Kyron Williams a little bit of a rest. And I think Blake Corum is that guy. So I think he's going to have an opportunity to kind of have his own role within the offense. But again, if you draft him and, not that you're wishing for it, knock on wood, nothing happens. But if something happens to Kyren Williams, Blake Corum is set up to get a whole lot of touches.
Okay, so running back, super extra secret sleeper.
Ooh. I like Chase Brown in Cincinnati.
Chase Brown in Cincinnati.
I mean, they brought in Zach Moss, and, there was the thought that Zach Moss walks into the starter role now that Joe Mixon is gone. But a lot of the buzz in camp is that Chase Brown is doing some really big things, that they really, really like him. I would also say I like Jonathan Brooks, the rookie out of Texas in Carolina. Understanding he's coming off an ACL tear that he had late last season. So it may take him a few weeks to get going. So you're going to need some other running backs to kind of get you through the first month, 6 weeks or so.
Who is the guy in Carolina? Is he the guy?
He will be when he's healthy. Right now it's Chuba Hubbard. He's the guy. But I think
he's always
a goal line guy.
He's literally always on the waiver wire.
When Jonathan Brooks gets healthy, I think he's the number one running back. Jonathan Brooks' biggest fault in college, the worst thing that happened to him is that he was stuck behind Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson.
Right. Yeah.
Good player, was stuck behind really talented players in college.
Okay, Brian, you got a question?
Yeah, I got one. So Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, a couple of number one backs the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Can we expect that they can have that type of year after last year?
I think Jonathan Taylor very much can have that year after last year. Obviously, he had the holdout, then he got hurt, and that sort of slowed him down a little bit. I think he is worth where he's going sort of in the late first, early second round in a lot of drafts. I think the Austin Eckler hate has gone too far. Like, he has fallen in a lot of drafts like the 8th or 9th round. I think what happened with Eckler is that he played most of last year hurt. He had the high ankle sprain. I think he rushed himself back, and I think he never completely got healthy. Now he's in Washington. He's paired up with Anthony Lynn. They did great things with the Chargers for a couple of years. Lynn's the running back coach there in Washington. He can still catch the football. I think, where you're getting him, being drafted as like a second or third running back, I think he outperforms his ADP.
I'm surprised you didn't ask anything about the Chargers, but I'm going to ask about the Raiders because I'm a Raider fan. So Zamir White, Alexander Mattison, Amir Abdullah. Do any of them have any value whatsoever?
Zamir White does.
He does.
He's the lead running back.
Is he a zero running back?
Kind of, yeah.
Guy?
He's sort of on the fringe. I don't know how much he's going to catch the football necessarily, but I think he's the guy that gets the majority of the opportunity there. I'll say this. When Josh Jacobs left to go to Green Bay, everybody, all the fantasy analysts around the world were like, hey, it's Zamir White season.
Right.
Then they signed Alexander Mattison, and everybody said, hey, it's Zamir White season. So that sort of tells you how everybody feels about that backfield.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, so there's a little fantasy for you. We'll do some wide receivers, and we'll do some quarterbacks.
Great.
Sweet.
Coming up. All right, so let's talk about NFL running backs for fantasy purposes. And I kind of like this idea of doing it in tiers.
Okay.
So on tier 1 among wide receivers, who should we chase?
I think you're looking at CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill,
right,
for sure. I think you can make a strong case for Jamar Chase as well.
So what's interesting in there is that you did not say Justin Jefferson. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I want to go, is how important is them not having a quarterback to Justin Jefferson? Because he's the best receiver in the league usually.
Yeah, I mean, it does mean something. Now, when you're talking about the guys at that level, it doesn't mean quite as much because, Justin Jefferson last year was your number 1 wide receiver. This year he's 4. So it's like the fall off isn't dramatic, but the reason he's fallen to 4 is because we've seen the Sam Darnold movie. We sort of know how this goes. And so there is a point to which it does matter. You want somebody who can get them the football, on time and on target. But when you're talking about guys like Justin Jefferson, a Jamar Chase, just your higher level guys, it's not quite as important because they're still going to get a volume of targets. And more than anything, you want volume. Like, quality is good, quantity is better.
Right. How do you value Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp?
I think they should be closer together being drafted. Like, I think Puka's a little bit too high, and I think Kupp is a little bit too low.
So, where does Puka rank 1 to whatever?
So Puka right now he's going right around wide receiver 8 or 9. I would prefer to see him at, say, 11 or 12, and I think Cooper Kupp probably should be, instead of wide receiver 18, I think you move him up to, say, 15 or 16. So I think that gap should be a little narrower.
Does Puka's was a hamstring injury, right? Does that worry you at all?
Mildly. Sean McVay has been really good about managing injuries, I think. He's very smart about not putting guys out there. We know we're not going to see any of the starters out there through the preseason. Like, that's his MO. So, I mean, it's something to kind of take note of, but right now I'm not super concerned.
So there are some interesting rookies. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors are probably the two top wide receiver rookies.
Yes.
How do you reach after those guys? Do you think they're guys that are immediate impact guys?
Absolutely. I think both of them are. I think with Harrison, you are sort of paying a hype tax on him because he is going early second round in a lot of drafts. It's the things that we love are talent and opportunity, and he is a perfect blend of those things. Arguably the most talented receiver in this draft class, going to Arizona with a good quarterback in Kyler Murray, in a place where there isn't a lot of competition for targets. It's Marvin Harrison, it's Trey McBride. Those guys are going to get most of the opportunities. So he is the guy that I think, since I've been doing this, I'm in my 14th season of this, I've never seen such excitement over a rookie receiver in fantasy. I mean, even Justin Jefferson, Odell Beckham, there hasn't been hype like this over a guy that I've ever seen. Malik Neighbors is sort of the same thing, but you talk about quarterback situation.
Right.
Nobody loves Daniel Jones. Nobody's excited about Daniel Jones. But you still see Malik Neighbors, say, in the third round or so, because it's a thing where who else are they going to throw the football to in New York? So he's going to get a ton of targets. He's still incredibly talented. So we sort of overlook the quarterback situation again because the target volume is going to be there.
Another guy that is has no quarterback, my guy, Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
He wasn't great last year with the mixture of different quarterbacks he had. Mm-hmm. Is Devontae Adams up higher with hopefully just one, maybe two?
So I think it's sort of weird because last year we went into the season and nobody loved the quarterback situation for the Raiders. And people still kind of bought in, and he was still the wide receiver 10 at the end of the season. This year, nobody loves the quarterback situation, but I could make a case that Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew might be better than what Jimmy Garoppolo was last year.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, people seem to be out on Devontae Adams. I don't know if it's, watching that receiver documentary on Netflix where he sort of was, salty about a lot of things.
Ripped on Garoppolo a lot.
Absolutely. So I don't understand why people are out on him because he's still, pound for pound, one of the most talented receivers in the league. And the quarterback situation is arguably slightly improved, but for whatever reason, he's fallen to the third or fourth round, which I will say thank you for the discount and draft him when I have the chance.
Right. All right, so last thing on wide receivers. Give me your super secret top sleepers.
I think a guy like, I'm trying to see who are these guys that I really like. Terry McLaurin, I think, is going to be interesting. I think they finally have a quarterback in Washington.
That's interesting. Yeah, Jaden Daniels, sure.
I think Drake London should be going higher than where he is, because they got a quarterback now.
Right.
They got.
I like Drake London a lot.
I think Drake London's in for a really, really big year now that Kirk Cousins is there. I think Amari Cooper, I think, is a guy that's just continually slept on, even though their quarterback situation is sort of up and down. I think those are the guys that I really am sort of like pegging as many times as I can in drafts.
Tell me if my strategy makes sense.
Okay.
Draft wide receiver, running back, and Caleb Williams late.
It's not a bad strategy.
I actually like Caleb Williams a lot for this year. He's got such good weapons.
He really does. I would say if you're drafting Caleb, to make sure you have another quarterback, like I wouldn't use him as my only
primary quarterback?
Right. Like, I think there's a lot of potential for him to do very well this year. There will be some growing pains. There will be some ups and downs there. So I would also want another guy that you can get sort of in the mid to late rounds that you can feel a little bit more comfortable with, like, maybe not spectacular, but steady on a week-to-week basis.
Right.
Are people planning on drafting Caleb late, or do you think that because he's that new rookie, the C.J. Stroud effect, and people in L.A. especially that see him at USC are going to draft him higher?
No, I think he's still going to go probably in the double-digit rounds in the later part of your draft.
Double-digit rounds?
I would think so.
Okay.
He's probably going to go. I will say this. The rookie quarterback that is drawing a lot of buzz for this year is Jaden Daniels.
Right. More than Caleb.
More than Caleb because we love quarterbacks that can run. We
Right.
want mobile. And Caleb Williams runs effectively.
Well, he's escapable. He's not
Yes.
necessarily a runner.
He runs sort of the way Patrick Mahomes runs. Where
Correct.
he runs when he needs to and it's effective and whatever. Jaden Daniels is a guy who ran for 1,100 yards his last year at LSU. He's going to be more – he'll run more like, a Lamar Jackson, like a Justin Fields kind of guy. And we love those players because there's just so many hidden yards. You're getting those passing yards and those passing touchdowns. But if you're giving me, say, another 50 yards rushing, that's an extra 5 fantasy points per game.
So is this why Josh Allen is Josh Allen the first quarterback
first
off the board?
quarterback,
Yeah,
yes.
because he runs.
Because he runs and he gives you that, he's the perfect combination of rushing and passing upside there.
And Hurts has got to be there too.
Hurts
right?
is there. He's usually like the second quarterback. Your top 3.
And Lamar.
Lamar's up there. Mahomes, because if you're not going to run, you have to be super efficient throwing the football. That's what Mahomes does, so that
Right.
keeps him in contention.
What do you do with Anthony Richardson? When he was healthy in those 4 games, he was running for touchdowns a lot.
Yeah.
So does he get moved up because it's a healthy season, hopefully, or is he still way, way down the board?
No, he's right now going as like your 6th quarterback off the board.
Wow.
For that
6th?
6th, because people were sort of excited about him last year, and then we saw, even in that small sample size, what he can do. What do you have, like 4 rushing touchdowns
in 4 games?
In parts of 4 games. He didn't play 4 full games.
Right.
And he had
Right.
4 rushing touchdowns. Everybody's really, really excited about him. And if it turns out that he's a better passer than we anticipated, then the ceiling only goes up.
Where is Matthew Stafford going in drafts?
He's another double-digit round guy. Right now, he's outside your top 12. He was for a long time what I would call the patron saint of the Church of Wait on a Quarterback. Like, if your strategy was to wait, Matthew Stafford was your guy.
Yeah.
He's a guy that can give you some really, really good weeks, but I think he's past the point of being that set it and forget it in your lineup guy.
What should you be expecting from Aaron Rodgers? He played 4 plays.
Played 4 plays.
He's in New York. He's got some receivers. Garrett Wilson's a really good receiver.
Yeah, he's a guy that I'm drafting Garrett Wilson. I'm drafting Breece Hall. I'm not drafting Aaron Rodgers because, one, he's certainly not the runner that he was earlier in his career. I don't know that he's that same level of efficient. And you go back throughout history, you go back 30, 40 years, the only quarterback to really come back from an Achilles injury was Dan Marino back in the mid-'90s. It's just not a great track record of quarterbacks having an Achilles injury and then recovering and being the same. Throw in the fact that he's going to be 41 by the time you get to the end of the season. I would rather let him be someone else's headache on their fantasy
Any
team.
of the other rookies interesting? Bo Nix in Denver, or who else do we got?
Drake May.
Drake May in New England.
Not
Who's
enough
in
that I want to
Atlanta?
draft him.
Drafted in
Michael
Atlanta.
Penix.
Michael Penix, but I don't think he's going to start.
First you need Kirk Cousins, something to happen to Kirk Cousins for Penix to get on the field. I'm not interested in any of those other guys necessarily if you play Dynasty League football, which is a whole other can of worms, maybe you're interested, but I think for this year, probably not.
So how early should you take a quarterback?
I tend to wait. I won't take one before, say, the 5th round.
5th round?
That's for me.
Because quarterbacks go super early in my draft. Like Mahomes will be late first round.
This is another thing where when you draft with people who do this a lot, it's like a game of chicken to see who's going to be the first person to take a quarterback.
Yes.
But when you draft with, regular folks, they do tend to take quarterbacks early. I think in a lot of drafts, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Mahomes, these guys are gone by the 3rd round.
Is that smart?
If you really want like an edge and a guy that you don't have to worry about every week, that's fine. I like to wait until like the 5th round. Lamar Jackson a lot of times is still there in the 5th round. Anthony Richardson is still there in the 5th round.
Would you go with Anthony Richardson as your guy?
I like Richardson. So my order, I prefer Lamar Jackson. If I don't get him, then there's Anthony Richardson. If I don't get Richardson, then there's Kyler Murray in like the 8th or 9th round, who I think is going to have a really, really good year. And if I miss out on all of them, then I'll take the swing of Jaden Daniels in like the 10th round.
Okay.
So you go no running back until the 5th, 6th round, no quarterback until the 5th, 6th round.
I'm
Are you going wide receiver and tight end?
Wide receiver, tight end.
Just over, back and forth.
Generally,
the first 4 rounds.
Now, look, there are exceptions. Like if I'm the number 1 pick, I will take Christian McCaffrey.
Sure.
Right off the jump.
Yeah.
If you're in the middle, like if you're the 5th or 6th pick.
If I'm the 5th or 6th pick, I'll consider like a Breece Hall or a Bijan Robinson. But a lot of times, I'm wide receiver, maybe a tight end in the 3rd. I guess I can go a quarterback in the 4th and then come back with a running back in the 5th. Yeah.
It's great having you here today. Of
course.
For this especially, but for everything else. As I told you earlier, my mom and not stepdad Leo, your biggest fans.
Cool.
They're running the Marcus Grant fan club.
Awesome.
Yeah.